These last 2 years have been especially difficult for you, but you've led our party in Europe and acted for our country in Europe, and we owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you to all of our MPs, present and past. Conference, the last 2 years has not been easy. Like many of you, I was devastated by the result of the referendum. Like many of you, I had campaigned and voted to remain. Not for the technical benefits of membership, important though they are, but because I'm proud to say I'm an internationalist. I believe that nations achieve more together than they do alone. I believe that the challenges facing our nation, whether that's conflict, terrorism, climate change, those challenges are best met together with our EU partners. And conference, if we think of the opportunities facing our nation, scientific research, medical developments, education, art and culture, those opportunities are going to be realised best with our EU partners. And conference, those values of collaboration and cooperation, they didn't die on the 23rd of June 2016, and they must guide everything that we do as we go through the Brexit process, because we cannot give in to the narrow ideology that is driving the Tory approach to Brexit. And conference, that's why we did not duck the challenge of Brexit. It would have been easy to wish away the result, but we didn't. We stepped up, we stood together, and we fought the government tooth and nail. And conference, we were right to do that. We were right to say jobs and the economy must come first. We were right to say that EU citizens are not bargaining chips. We were right to say there's going to need to be a transition period so we don't go off a cliff. And we were right to say we need a customs union with the EU to protect our manufacturing base and to keep the solemn commitment to no hard border in Northern Ireland. And we were right to argue for a single market deal to go with that customs union. And we were absolutely right to insist that Parliament has a meaningful vote on the Article 50 deal that the Prime Minister seeks to bring back. And I'm glad we stepped up to those challenges. The conference, we're about to be tested again. Over the next few weeks and months, hugely important decisions are going to be made that are going to affect each and every one of us. And what does the Prime Minister say? Even in the aftermath of Salzburg, she says, trust me on Brexit. Trust her on Brexit. Trust the Prime Minister whose first choice as Foreign Secretary was Boris Johnson. Her second choice was the man who's been running down the NHS for the past few years. And conference, this Prime Minister is responsible for the hostile environment. This Prime Minister appointed a Secretary of State for Northern Ireland who doesn't understand the basics about Northern Ireland. let alone the complexities. So, Conference, this Prime Minister does not deserve our trust. Just when we need strong government, strong leadership, what have we got? Division, chaos, failure. The government has no credible plan for Brexit weeks out from the deadline. No credible solution for Northern Ireland weeks out from the deadline. And it's blindingly obvious that there's no majority for Chequers. The Prime Minister must have been the only person surprised last week that Chequers was not going to be accepted either in Europe or by our own party. But Conference, what has happened is that the Tory civil war on Europe that's been going on for years now risks our prosperity. The party, do you remember, that promised to fix the roof whilst the sun was shining is now intent on burning the house down. So, Conference, I've got a message for the Prime Minister. If your party wants to tear itself apart, that's fine. But you're not taking our country with you. And Conference, that is why Labour set 6 tests for Brexit. Not just technical tests, but tests that set out the sort of country, the sort of society that we want, where the well-being of all our communities matter. Those tests weren't plucked from thin air. They were taken from promises and commitments that the government made about what it would achieve in these negotiations. The Prime Minister's response to the test was that she was determined to meet them. Well, things may be going hopelessly wrong for her. She may have lowered her expectations, but I'm not lowering mine. And Conference, I know you want to know, our members want to know where we stand on our tests going into this important vote in the autumn. Some say we may vote for the deal that the Prime Minister brings back, maybe abstain, maybe vote for a vague deal. So let me be absolutely clear. If the Prime Minister returns with a deal that does not meet our tests, and that looks increasingly likely, we will vote against her deal. And Conference, if the Prime Minister thinks that she can come back with a vague deal, asking us to leap blindfold into the unknown, we will vote that down. Conference, we didn't set tests that could be met by refusing to answer the question. A vague or blind Brexit is a leap to nowhere, and we'll have no part of it. Now, Conference, let's be clear. This is not about frustrating the process. It is about stopping a destructive Tory Brexit. It is about fighting for our values, and it is about fighting for our country. And Conference, when it comes to that vote in Parliament, we do not accept that the choice is between whatever the Prime Minister manages to cobble together or no deal. That is not a meaningful vote. Between really bad and even worse, no deal would be a catastrophe. And no government has the right to plunge our country into chaos because of their own failures. So if Parliament votes down the Prime Minister's deal, or she can't reach a deal, that is not the end of the debate. And Labour must step up again and shape what happens next. Our preference is clear. We want a general election to sweep away this failed government. And conference. Having swept them away, we want to install a radical Labour government capable of transforming this country. And that's what should happen after 2 years of negotiations ending in failure. But if that's not possible, we must have other options. And conference, that must include campaigning for a public vote. Conference, it's right that Parliament has the first say. It's right that Parliament has the first say. But if we need to break the impasse, our options must include campaigning for a public vote, and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option. And conference. And conference. Thank you, conference. And can I... That's why I'm very pleased that we as a party can put our full weight behind this morning's motion, which will be moved by the GMB. And can I just thank all of the delegates, the hundreds of delegates, who sweated it out with us on Sunday night for nearly 6 hours to get a motion that we could put forward. And conference, you know, and our members know that there are differences of opinion on Brexit. But what happened in that session is we reached a consensus. We're able to put a united position before conference today. And conference, just to fast forward a week to contrast the position when we vote on our motion, our consensus motion, in a united Labour Party way. Fast forward to the chaos you're likely to see at the Tory party conference, where they weren't able to agree anything at all. Now, conference, you will appreciate that all of us in the room on Sunday evening missed the last episode of The Bodyguard. There are nearly 300 people walking around not wanting to know what happened. So if you watched it, please don't tell us what happened. We haven't caught up yet. And conference, one final but important point. Whatever the deal the Prime Minister does or doesn't bring back, that's only part of the debate. The referendum was not just about technical membership of the EU. It was much wider and much deeper than that. It became a vote on the state of the nation. It became a vote on economics and politics and how they work, or in many cases, don't work. And millions of people sent us a very clear message that we must transform our economy, rebuild our public services, tackle inequality wherever it is, and give power back to our communities. There can be no satisfactory response to the referendum unless we have the right relationship with the EU, but also the right deal for Britain. Conference, I'm under no illusion about the challenge ahead. We're going through uncertain times, and Brexit has divided the country. But we must remain united in the fight for our values, values that hold our party together, and values which I think could bring the country back together. That is our challenge, and we must rise to it. Thank you, Conference. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keir. He makes it sound easy. Conference, we have a number of items in this debate. These include the contemporary composites on Brexit and government contracts. The main Policy Commission report we are considering is that of Environment, Energy and Climate Change on pages 39 to 54 of the National Policy Forum report. We have also been notified of a proposal to refer back on a section of the National Policy Forum report. So first we'll move on to the contemporary composites, and the first one we'll take is contemporary composite number 5 on Brexit, to be moved by the GMB, and could Exeter CLP be ready to second? Thank you.
Good morning, Conference. Tim Roach, GMB, moving Composite 5, and in doing so, can I first of all pay tribute to Keir Starmer? What a class act. And doesn't it just show that if you have someone leading negotiations who has integrity and working people at their very heart, then that's what can be achieved. Keir, well done. And Conference, I genuinely wish I didn't have to speak to a motion on Brexit. My union, GMB, campaigned for Remain, but we knew the dangers. Years of governments out of touch with working people led to frustration with the political class. Whole communities said that they would rather risk tearing down the entire system than live with the status quo that they were experiencing. Our movement shouted from the rooftops about the crisis in working class communities. We told the politicians. We decried the flogging off of our public services. We warned about insecure work. We screamed about the lack of council housing. I take no pleasure but see great irony in the howls emanating from some of the Blairites and big business about the perils of Brexit, when it was their slavish devotion to free and flexible markets which led us here in the first place. We told them, Conference, but they didn't listen. So GMB respects the vote to leave the EU, but how we leave is as important as the decision to leave in the first place. It's crucial. It really matters. It matters to jobs and industry, whether we're in a customs union and can participate in the single market. It matters to each and every person who values peace and stability that we prevent a hard border in Ireland. It matters to working people, the length and breadth of this country, that when they go to work, they have rights, they have a say, that they have their safety. It's not discarded by red tape, by the Bullingdon Club Tories who have never done a day's work in their bloody lives. So yes, the country voted to leave, but people didn't vote leave for more uncertainty, more insecure jobs. It was the lack of power over their own lives that led to them wanting to take back control. People didn't vote leave to see household bills skyrocket. It was the daily struggle to provide for their families that led to the rejection of a broken system. And people didn't vote for the privatisation of even more services through dodgy backroom trade deals. They voted leave because they couldn't get an appointment with their GP. They couldn't get their kids into a local school. Conference, I have no faith whatsoever in this government's ability to get a deal for working people to address these very issues. No faith the government will pass Labour's 6 tests, because the reality out there is that imports in food, in manufacturing, in pharmaceuticals, in energy, in health, right across our country, workers and employers alike are telling me that there is no plan. The Prime Minister is held hostage by her own ministers. She has no plan A, let alone a plan B, no deal, no security, no clue, not even the confidence of her own people. But if Theresa May is so confident and assured of her deal, well, let's put it to the test then. Let's let the people decide. Because that conference is what we do as trade unionists, day in, day out. We negotiate the best possible deal, then we put it back to our members for them to decide. And that's even more essential as the mask of the Tory Brexiteers continues to slip. Only yesterday, they cheered extreme proposals that would take an axe to working time directive proposals. Theresa May should have condemned Boris Johnson and Michael Gove for their conduct and lies. Instead, she gave them a bloody job in her cabinet. It's a scandal conference. So this is the crux of the entire debate. In whose interests do the government negotiate? Hardline Tory toffs who are holding the Prime Minister to ransom. For the spivs and speculators. For the cosy capitalist cabal. Their mate Donald Trump at the front of the queue when they're already circling our NHS. For the bosses and bankers who care not about what led us here in the first place, they care just about the bottom line bank balance. Conference, that Brexit would be a disaster for those of us who believe in equality, in social justice and a fairer economy. We need workplace rights that allow workers to really take back control of their lives. An end to freeloading, free trading, tax dodging by multinationals like Amazon, who make billions on the back of mainstreaming insecure workers while shirking their responsibility to the taxpayers. It would mean real investment in communities that were decimated by Thatcher and never truly rebuilt. And it would mean an end to austerity that is crippling communities, killing public services, so sending people, working people, to food banks. So, conference, I'll conclude with this. If Theresa May can't get a deal that works for working people, then step aside. Let's have a general election. Let's get a party in government that will get a deal for working people. Conference, I'm proud to move. Thank you.
Good morning, Conference. Jane Begley from Exeter CLP. This is my first time at Conference and my first time as a speaker. I certainly didn't expect to come to Liverpool. Certainly didn't expect to come to Liverpool and be addressing you all on such a pivotal issue. Nervous comes nowhere near to describing how I'm feeling right now. It's a great honour and a privilege to stand before you today to second this motion, a motion we worked on till midnight on Sunday evening. Such was our commitment to finding a solution. I feel passionately about being part of the European Union, and when I joined the party in 2015, my first introduction to canvassing was pounding the streets in support of Remain. The result was a crushing disappointment, even though in Exeter we achieved a 55% vote to Remain. I was disappointed, not just for myself, but for my then 15-year-old daughter, who was angry that she didn't get a vote, yet she and all her friends, the young people of this country, are the ones who will be most impacted by this result, badly impacted by this result. YouGov reported that over 70% of under-25s voted Remain. I came of age with the belief that it was the duty of each generation to improve the lot of the generations that follow them. Brexit is another example of how my generation, and this government in particular, have comprehensively screwed over our young people. When I went to university, not only was it free, but I was paid to go. My wonderful and intelligent, now 17-year-old daughter has serious doubts and may not pursue a degree because she is so put off by the prospect of acquiring a burden of debt. And I share her anger. In May, I was elected to Exeter City Council, taking a seat from the Tories. I represent a ward that contains both areas of affluence and areas of deprivation. The concerns of the doorstep about Brexit did not come from the poorest areas of the ward, and this was reflected across our country, where the poorest and most disenfranchised were those who voted most decisively to leave. I do believe it was a vote against the status quo, a vote against austerity, and a vote against David Cameron, the worst possible poster boy for the Remain campaign, who promptly turned on his heels and ran away. The shambolic way in which the Tory government have conducted their so-called negotiations have shown us all how inadequate they are to the task of sorting out the unholy mess they have created. As a second-generation Irish immigrant who was raised with the perpetual backdrop of the Troubles on the national news in the 1970s, I am offended by the cavalier carelessness they have shown towards concerns about the Irish border. The risk of a no-deal Brexit is terrifyingly imminent. What we desperately need is a general election to move the Tories aside and let us hand the task to Keir Starmer and our superb leadership team, a team that has relentlessly and consistently worked with the greatest integrity, inspiring more trust and hope than I have ever felt for any politicians. Thousands like me have become activated to do all they can to become part of the change we want to see. This has been reflected in the number of people we have heard from over the last few days who are here at conference and speaking for the first time. Whilst I personally would love for us to remain in the EU, we must take care that by committing wholeheartedly to another referendum at this stage, we do not alienate all of those people across great swathes of our nation who with sincerity voted leave. The risk is that they may then dismiss us as being just the same as all the rest and not listening to their concerns. This is why I ask you, conference, to support this motion, a motion that does not bind but empowers our leadership to negotiate through the unpredictable times ahead. Thank you, conference. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next contemporary composite 6 on government contracts has been moved by unison, and could Bladen CLP be ready to second? Point of order. hold fire? We've got a point of order. Just hang fire. Yeah, could the point of order come forward?
I'm here from St Austell and Newquay, CLP. My point of order is that we haven't all got copies of the report today, and that seems bad planning, knowing how many delegates are here. And it means that we can't take the best possible position in the debate because we haven't got the information. And I, for one, haven't got the technology to read it on a smartphone or anything that I can properly read. So I would like to request that more copies are printed and that more copies are provided tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah, that was raised, so CAC will be dealing with that. Dave? Thank you.